Sometimes we can become romantically obsessed with the wrong person, someone who isn't good for us or isn't available or isn't willing to commit. Unfortunately, we can also be really deeply infatuated before we realize it's doomed. We can enter an altered mental state of romantic obsession known as limerence, which is well described as addiction to another person. Now, one of the most powerful ways of breaking the limerence spell is to break contact with the person you're infatuated with. No contact definitely works. It takes away the source of the addiction. But it is surprisingly difficult to pull off. It comes with a lot of complications and risks. You need to have a plan. This video provides one. Hi, my name is Tom Bellamy. I'm a neuroscientist and writer, and I blog all about limerence at livingwithlimerence.com. I'm also the author of the book Smitten, which explains what limerence is, how neuroscience can help us make sense of it, and how to recover from it. Now, one of the most powerful steps you can take for recovery from unwanted limerence is to limit contact with the person that you're obsessed with, your limerent object. But it isn't usually simple to go no contact. There are lots of obstacles in the way. So let's go through them. The decision to go no contact often has a specific impetus, a moment of crisis or moment of clarity that makes you realize how unhealthy your limerence has become. It might be a humiliating interaction with your limerent object, or an ultimatum from an existing partner, or just the realization that you're sacrificing time, energy, and real relationships for a misguided fantasy. That moment of clarity is a valuable decision point, but it can be fragile. At first sight, going no contact seems as though it should be easy. You just stop seeing them. But in reality, of course, life is rarely that simple. First, it's often not possible to avoid your limerent object entirely. So if you work together or study together, or if they're a neighbor or a close friend, for example, it's going to be difficult. You can't always control when you might have to spend time with them. Second, your limerent brain will fight back. It will resist your attempts to withdraw. It wants you to fail so that you'll reconnect with the source of hyper reward that it's become addicted to. You're going to have to fight that resistance. Third, no contact can be emotionally taxing. There's shame in admitting you're obsessed, and it can feel isolating and embarrassing. You're also cutting off a source of reward and hope. Breaking a habit is painful. Finally, another big factor to anticipate is that going no contact creates uncertainty. You don't know what's going on anymore. What's your limerent object doing? Do they miss you? Are they depressed? Or even worse, are they happy? Now, to get through all these problems, you need a plan. So let's start laying one out. The first and most important factor to consider is how much contact you can realistically cut. And contact isn't just about meeting in person, of course. There's lots of indirect forms of contact. Texting, email, WhatsApp, and just passive consumption of their social media. Sometimes it is possible to go completely cold turkey and cut all contact through all channels. That's certainly decisive and effective. More commonly, though, the best strategy is not to be so forceful, but instead aim for limited contact. Some people do prefer to just plunge straight into the cold water. Others ease themselves in. Gradually reducing the amount of contact that you have is a staged withdrawal approach. You withdraw from a state of overexposure that reinforces the addiction to a state of limited contact in stages. A lot of the challenge of doing something that's good for you, but you don't want to do, is reducing the emotional resistance by making each step small enough to feel manageable. So this means as well that other people are less likely to notice and comment on changes in your behavior, and it prevents your limerent brain from panicking at the prospect of never seeing your limerent object again. Now, it's fair to say that some people react to this idea badly. They think it's manipulative and a bad way to treat a friend to deliberately cut them out of your life. Okay, loyalty is a good principle, but of course there's a but. You can't actually be a good friend to a limerent object. If you're besotted with somebody, but you're covering it up, there's already a pretense built into that relationship. You can't be completely authentic with them. You're bottling up massive emotions, and they have a habit of breaking out at inconvenient times and spoiling the friendship. Deliberately trapping yourself in limerence limbo is not really about loyalty. It's about denying an uncomfortable truth about your feelings. They aren't platonic. You want more. You're pretending that friendship is enough. Okay, so with that objection out of the way, how do you do staged withdrawal effectively? The most important principle is to have clear and definite stages and clear boundaries that are specific. A boundary like no texting after 6 p.m. is easy to understand and enforce. An aspiration like less texting is an open door of plausible deniability for your limerent brain to rampage through. Similarly, if you're in the habit of spending coffee breaks with your limerent object, cutting back from daily to every other day to once a week, and then stopping the habit entirely is a specific plan. Seeing them less is not. The key point is intentionality. Whether it's fast or slow, your withdrawal should be progressive and definite to avoid slipping back into old patterns. Once you start reducing contact, your subconscious is going to start resisting your efforts. You've spent the last few weeks, months, possibly even years training it to associate your limerent object with intense romantic reward. That's a natural process, and it feels really good. Romantic attachment, passionate love are wonderful things if they are directed at people that you can form an open, healthy bond with. Unfortunately, life being the way that it is, there's often a mismatch between our subconscious desires and our conscious understanding of the limits of reality. We become limerent for people who are incompatible, unavailable, inappropriate, possibly even toxic. And that leads to the all too human state of intellectual and emotional conflict. We know a relationship is impossible or bad for us, but we want it anyway. In limerence, that wanting drive is hyperactive. Dopamine release is sensitized, and executive control is compromised. It's an altered mental state like a behavioral addiction. We crave contact with the limerent object, and reducing contact can perversely cause that craving to kick up a gear. This is a particular risk if you've been using limerent reverie, so those private daydreams and fantasies about being deliciously bonded to your limerent object, for mood repair. So stress, sadness, anxiety cause an impulse to escape, and our subconscious has learned very well that those limerent fantasies are pleasurable. So before you even have time for reasoning, limerent thoughts are already intruding into your mind, and the urge to seek them is strong. The compulsion to check their social media, to see a photo of them, to text them, anything to get some fleeting relief from the distress. These are withdrawal pains. Your brain craves a reward, and not getting it feels painful. Your limerent subconscious resists no contact like an addict resists sobriety. And those withdrawal symptoms, so the restlessness, the irritability, and the urge to reconnect, are the last gasp of a dependency that doesn't want to admit defeat. They stem from neural pathways that are trained to associate your limerent object with reward, so it's a biological response, not a sign of a true need. And the pains are temporary. They fade in time. They're just evidence that your brain is reluctantly letting go of an unhealthy habit. So craving and withdrawal pains aren't the only emotions that you'll have to deal with during no contact. Withdrawing from your limerent object can create a profound sense of loss. They might have been a friend, a confidant, or a source of emotional support, filling a void in your life. Sometimes when the bond with the limerent object is especially strong, the pain of loss can even feel like grief. The term disenfranchised grief was coined by Kenneth Dokar, and it relates to forms of loss that are not socially sanctioned because they don't fit into most people's conception of acceptable reasons to mourn. Examples include the death of a pet, the death of an ex-spouse or partner, or even grieving for a period that's considered too long by the average person. Ending a limerence connection could fall into this disenfranchised grief category. You may even feel yourself that the grief isn't justified, but the emotions are still going to be there, and that can compound feelings of shame that limerence already breeds. Now, even if you didn't have that closer bond to your limerent object, you're still going to have to deal with the death of hope. Emotionally, your limerent object offered romantic promise, intoxicating excitement, possibly even a different life path. Giving up on that, even if you know it's for the best reasons, is rough. Accepting loss as an inescapable part of change is the only way forwards, really. Acknowledging this sense of grief without minimizing it or blaming yourself is the key thing. It isn't shameful, but you also shouldn't waste your life in limbo for a hopeless dream. Another factor that can set back progress in going no contact is that there are many circumstances that are outside of your control. Random triggers can happen at any time. An unexpected encounter with your limerent object, or someone else telling you what they've been up to, even just the sudden intrusion of a nostalgic memory, can test your resolve and cause relapses when you give up and try to reconnect. It's all too easy to come up with rationalizations about why it's okay to relax a bit, to not be so uptight, just want to find out what's going on. Relapses are obviously a problem because they revive the old addiction again, but that isn't even the worst outcome. You are also teaching your limerent brain that your principles are negotiable. You're undermining your commitment to yourself. Your plan becomes provisional, not decisive, as it needs to be. Living with uncertainty is a key skill for recovering from limerence. As desperate as you are to know how your limerent object is doing, if you want to move on and leave them behind you, it's much better to accept the uncertainty and be fine with it. I don't know, and that's okay, is the mantra here. Closure is an illusion. You won't get emotional relief from going back and relitigating all the reasons why a relationship with your limerent object was never going to work out. Look to the future. You've chosen to go no contact. Stick to that resolve. Freedom comes from liberating yourself from the limerence, and that means accepting uncertainty as a necessary part of the process. Okay, so I've covered a lot of the problems with going no contact, but to make the process even easier and quicker, I've put together a free 10-step no contact checklist that covers all the practical steps needed to win. And you can download it by signing up to my email newsletter at the link in the description below. Now, no contact is an invaluable tool for overcoming unwanted limerence, but it's only one part of the recovery process. For a comprehensive overview of how to get out of that altered state of mind for good, check out this video next, which goes through the process in detail. That's it for now. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe if you'd like more, and I'll see you next time.